This video will overview iDMS iUpdate, which this is using an IQA query as your data source. So if you know your query's path, you can manually type it in, or you can hit this select button here, which will pull up all of your IQA queries. My IQA query will find any expired associate members. And what I would like to do is set those members as a non-member. So as you can see, the paid through is less than today's date, and a member type equal to A. And the columns available you see here are from the display tab that you have in the IQA query. And it says 0 filters available because in the IQA query, there was no prompt for these fields. If you did have a prompt, it will show up right here. I have another IQA query within my environment that has a filter. So if I go to expired associate members in this path, you'll see that the paid through filter does come through, and I can set the filter. This is just looking for today's date, but you can set in a specific date if you'd like. The actions are the exact same as iImport. In this case, I would just want to update the record in iMIS and set the member type to non-member. So I'll hit update. Next, I'll hit add mapping, and under sources, I'll select iMIS ID and then the ID from my IQA query and then match on. So that tells the product, look for this ID in your iMIS environment. Next, I want to add a mapping for member type, and I want to hard code the member type to set it to. I want to make them a non-member, but when you're hard coding here, you need to put in the member type code, which is NM for me. The same goes for if there's a product code or a committee code, anything like that, you need to use the code and not the full description. And then I will not check this checkbox. Hit save. So this is telling the product, look for this ID in your iMIS environment. If a match is found, update the member type to NM. This red yellow warning is saying that you're only matching on a single field. So if, for example, you are updating an activity, if you only match on ID, it will update every single activity for that record. So in that case, you would have to match on more than one field. But I know that each iMIS ID has one and only one member type. For the options, you can see that they are the same as before. If I want to schedule this as a task, because you have the iSchedule module, you can click Schedule as Task and then give it a nice name like Expiring Associate Members. This tells the product how many times to run it in a row before it's disabled. Next, you'll have to set the cron tab schedule. Do note it is in UTC time. There is a schedule builder here, which will give you the chance to do a recurring or one time. For recurring, we highly recommend to not run a job more than once per hour. And then lastly, there is an enabled. So you can create a task and then not enable it so that in the future, maybe 6 months from now when you're live, you can then enable it and then turn it off if you no longer need it. So I'll hit submit, and just as you saw in iImport, it gives you the IQA query, how many rows are returned, the action, options, mappings, and then the summary of what will be done. Once you hit continue, you'll notice that the summary is the same as you saw before. It tells you that it ran this query, how many data rows, and then next it says it updated the record and then going to the next record. Just as before, if there's any failures, you can download that Excel. And then also, just as before, you can see import details by clicking on that I icon. With iUpdate, the IQA query that you create and use within the product, there are some important requirements. For example, do not have a slash in the IQA query name. The alias in the display tab is recommended to not be used. And then lastly, the limit the number of results returned needs to be turned off. And also, the IQA should have this checkbox checked. That is about it for iUpdate. Thank you for watching.